all the participants. Thank you for taking out this time on the Saturday morning. And we assure you that this time will be very well spent in learning about quality from some of the eminent speakers on the panel today. Is my voice coming clearly, Prabhakarji?
Yes, I am able to hear you.
Yes.
Okay,
yes, you're clear, Amit. Go ahead.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Uday. So thank you once again, all the participants for joining in on Saturday morning. So we have some eminent speakers today who will take us through some important concepts of quality. This program is primarily focused on academia and the quality for small industries. Having said that, anybody from any company, any matured organization who's just beginning their learning in the sphere of quality are also more than welcome, and I'm sure that they will benefit from this program. And as you can see, that it's not only the students but also a lot of professionals, young professionals, and the professionals who are already into their careers have also joined us. It's very encouraging sign. We assure you that we'll give you the very important takeaways from this session. Ladies and gentlemen, I would first like to introduce our two important members of our team here. Mr. Virendra Atre and Mr. Chitransh Srivastav. They are going to handle an important task of managing the question and answer sessions. And Virendra Atre ji is experienced in the industry with over 22 years of experience in automotive, and is currently heading the Center of Excellence at Motherson Corporate at Noida. Chitransh is also an professional. He's a student. He's currently a CAT aspirant, and he has already done his mechanical engineering. So while he's preparing for his CAT, he's also volunteering to make his contributions towards the society in terms of propagating the knowledge of quality. So thank you, Chitransh, and thank you, Virendraji, for volunteering for this very important behind-the-scenes task. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two important speakers here today. And before I introduce them, I'll request the president of the Delhi NCR chapter, Mr. Uday Mahajan, to please take the stage and give his a broad overview of what ISQ is about and why are we here today. Over to you, Uday.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you very much. And a very warm welcome to everybody on behalf of ISQ and the NCR chapter in particular. I will take about 8 to 10 minutes to run you through what ISQ does, and then we'll go back to Amit for him to take the introductions for the speakers and then for the speakers to start their sessions. I'll quickly share my screen, and Amit, I request you to please confirm that everything is in order before I get started. Yeah, can you see my slides?
Yes, Uday,
let me know when you can, please. Okay, wonderful. So I will just put it on full screen. All right, so I hope it's all in order. Yeah. Okay, so today's session, as Amit said, is all about quality for academia and small industries, but he also mentioned that it's not limited to all of us who are from that background only. I think everybody who wants to learn a little bit more about these concepts is welcome to attend. And before we jump into the session, I would like to just maybe talk a little bit about what ISQ is. We were formed in, the full form is the Indian Society for Quality, as you all probably know, formed in 1996. And we are an independent body. We are a not-for-profit organization, and we work basically to bring together individual members, organizations, NGOs, and other like-minded people to interact in the service of quality, and essentially make sure that dissemination of knowledge and engagement is happening at various levels, and any help that we can provide as a forum is being provided to regardless of whether we are students or whether we're industry or whether it's academia or the government. We always put our foot forward to try and make sure that quality as a concept is getting a place in our country and helping the progression in the coming times. Moving forward, we've been engaged in various international forums as well. Some of the affiliations are mentioned on this slide. Asia Network for Quality is one of the big ones that we participate in. We take pride in participating in. We are also represented on the board of the Asia Network for Quality. We, in fact, uh, uh, some of us on this forum also play a role in assessing the papers that are sent from here for participation in the ANQ Congress every year. And we've been recognized at various levels across the globe in terms of our efforts towards the quality movement in India. We take pride in saying that we do think we are the face of India in the world of quality. Of course, there are other great organizations working in similar space, and they also have great contributions. And all of us together are trying to make a mark in this concept and across the globe for India to be standing out as a country that represents quality. Moving on, yeah. So as most organizations, we also have a mission and vision, which is a very important part of why we exist. The mission is essentially the reason for ISQ to be there in the first place, which as you can see is contribute to thriving of humanity in a healthy planet. So the purpose, as you can see, is much larger, which essentially what the mission is standing for. Vision is something that we'd like to do in the next few years. And as you can see, we made our vision in 2020. And this is more a 5-year vision, which is around being the principal national forum for leaders, professionals, and academics for exchange of knowledge on delivering quality that benefits humanity. And it's interesting to see the words here resonate so well in the title of the forum today. And I hope we yet again are able to live up to our vision of 2025 through this event. And I say today, but this event actually spread over 2 days, as Amit will talk a little bit more. This is some faces of our General Council. 2 of them you can see on the call today. Amit just spoke, and we've got Prabhakar. Janak Mehta ji is our president, and he is also the first Indian to have received the individual Deming Prize, if you all may be aware, followed by Mr. Veru Srinivasan, who got it a few years back as well. So some heavyweights in terms of quality names here who guide us, who continue to be a part of our leading team. We also have the NCR chapter, which is comprising of yours truly. My picture is there in the center. And there's Amit on the left, who just spoke a while ago. He's going to be anchoring the session, who's the vice president. We've also got Kunal Parekh, who's a very active member of the team. He's our secretary. And we've also got Viren and Atulji, who are on the call today, which I think Amit will be doing further introductions. He already introduced Viren a while ago. And Atulji is going to be one of our speakers as well, so he'll talk about him. ISQ also has certain awards that have been established over time, because I think the need to recognize work done in the field of quality is extremely important. These are coveted awards. They are very selectively awarded. And, I will share with you a list of names who've been given these prizes. But we've got 4 categories, which is the Dronacharya Award, the Jamshedji Award, the Ashoka Award, and the Harsha Award. All of them are there for a particular purpose. And Dronacharya Award is given for contributions towards teaching and counseling in the field of quality management. Of course, there are other values that we recognize people who are doing this through, the tenets of basic human humility, dignity, respect for the others, with a sense of service, etc., are all factored into this prize, established in 2004. Another one that was established in 2004 was the Jamshedji Tata Award. And this is to recognize the industry leaders who made significant contributions through their love for quality and leading the organizations, with great focus on the subject. In fact, last year we had Mr. TV Narendran, who's the chairman and managing director of Tata Steel, who was the recipient of this prize. Then we also have the Ashoka Award, which is to recognize professionals who are from the field and who are making a huge impact, followed by the Harsha Award, which is a recognition of professionals who've contributed to the promotion of quality management principles, techniques, and practices through their organizations. Moving on, this, as you can see, some faces to the names of the prizes that have been given. Interesting to see that out of the 8 that we have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sorry, we've got 6 Japanese senseis, and we've got 1 Indian standing out, Mr. Ramanathan. He, for all of you who know him, would know that he is truly deserving of this prize. He's led the TK movement in our country for many, many years and continues to do so. I personally have a close relationship with him. He's almost like a guru to all of us, and keep taking tips from him in terms of how TKM can further evolve to the improvement of our society. The next category, some more names here. Some great names, as you can see here again. Some very prominent names here: Mr. Venu Srinivasan, Mr. J.J. Irani, Mr. Bharatram, Mr. Surinder Kapoor, Mr. Muthuraman, Mr. Nandan Nilekani, Mr. Narendran, as I mentioned a while ago. And this is also, as you can see, a very, very selected set of people who've truly made contributions in the field of quality in our country and even outside. Then we have some winners from the Ashok Award. You can see some names here as well. Mr. Ashok Sharma, a very prominent name from Mahindra Group, and several others who I will not take names of, but there are many here who are well deserving and have made a mark. And of course, the last but not the least category is the Harsha Award winners. And as you can see, some names here as well, and great contributions coming from them. Dr. Pankaj Kumar himself has been an author. He's written books on TQM. Dr. Sarita Nagpal has been an active member of the CII. She continues to drive various quality forums even now, and the others as well. Moving on to how we are structured, a very, very quick overview. As you can see, we've got the Governing Council, whose pictures we showed at the previous slides. And we've got a confluence of three broad elements, which is forums, committees, and divisions. And each of these divisions, as you can see, is driving specific concepts. So committees are driving, things like memberships, programs, awards, certification, and handling the administrative portion of what we do. We've got divisions which are more industry specific. And we've got forums which are more themes around which we'd like to have interactions. So you can see quality innovation. We've got quality earth, which is really about our planet and the emerging ESG and sustainability concepts, as we are aware of. We've also got an element of counseling, education, research and development, and Lean Six Sigma, which continues to thrive, in terms of improving our processes and reducing variation and waste. On a geographical front, even though nowadays the world is becoming a very small place, everything is online. We are all sitting here in our rooms, offices, homes, and participating in this forum. It is important to have some degree of physical interaction, as some of you might agree. And we've had 5 chapters that have been established over the years. The latest one being Jamshedpur, and NCR also being one of them. So we continue to drive events which are pan-India, even globally, through our Apex Governing Council, in which all chapters come together and participate as one unit. And we have forums like this one, which are organized individually by various chapters and, which have a flavor of, a local participation in many cases. Well, not so much in today's case, but we do have things like, factory visits and physical interaction forums, which normally would have people from that particular chapter geography to be participating in. So that's a brief about us. And then, of course, we do a lot of events, as I mentioned earlier as well. We recently had November, as we know, is the quality month worldwide. And we had some eminent names coming and speaking on a weekly basis. These faces are probably familiar to many of you. And if you Google them, if you don't know them by any chance, you'll find lots and lots of rich information available on the net, which will tell you why they were part of this quality month lecture that happened. Moving on, we also have an annual conference which takes place in various chapters throughout the year. The last one being held in Chennai in December, and before that it was held in December in 2021, wherein the NCR chapter had hosted it at the Crown Plaza here in Gurgaon. We have the next one coming up as well, and it's held in December of every year. Some major speakers who were there this year around, you can see some big names here as well. I'll quickly skip in the interest of time because we'd like the forum to get started. We also have various forums like the CO through TQM, which is an event which Mr. Ramanathan actually hosts completely pro bono, only in the service of quality. The last one was held in the NCR. We had the honor of hosting him here along with the people who participated. And of course, the next one I think is now scheduled for in Pune. And I believe Prabhakar tells me it's been overbooked multifold times. And we already got a pipeline of people who want to participate in the one that's being planned after that. Then we also have a concept of team-oriented problem solving, which takes place, through every chapter. It's a physical event, as you can see. This one was pictures from the one that we held in NCR last year at the Tata Power facility in Delhi. Lots and lots of participation, lots and lots of smiling faces, as you can see, winners and runners-ups and people who just had the chance to experience this wonderful forum. The numbers seem to be growing over the years, which is very, very encouraging. And so on and so forth. So we have a symposium that was held, which was a first of its kind, which was held in 2022, in which some big names participated. This was more to do with the academia and some good learnings that came out from this, hosted at Bangalore. And some more that are coming up. I'll not go through all of them, but there's the annual conference being planned in Jamshedpur later this year. Then we've got CEO through TQM, several of them happening. We've got the ANQ Congress. We've got some of the other ISQ sessions, TOPS conventions. You can see these dates. I'm sure they're available on the website as well. And you can choose to decide which one you'd like to attend. If any of them generates any interest, I'm sure it will. And that's really the end of my presentation. I thank you very much for being active listeners here. I will now stop sharing and hand it back to Amit. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you. Thanks for a very crisp and meaningful introduction. Participants, this is now time that I introduce you to what we are going to discuss in this program. So this program is split into 4 sessions, split over 2 Saturdays. In today's session, we are going to have the basics of quality and some application related, some basic applications of quality by Mr. Atul Srivastav, which will be followed by process management, process improvements, and 7 QC tools by Mr. Kunal Parekh. Talking about these eminent speakers today. But before that, the next Saturday is going to have 2 sessions, which is quality management systems by Mr. Maharshi Badeka and on total quality management by myself. Now let's get started with the first session of the day by Mr. Atul Srivastav. And the session is on quality, its profound meaning and endless pursuit to meet dynamic customer requirements. So as we know that the customer requirements are not static, they keep evolving. And the world is evolving, the customer requirements are evolving, and therefore, in order to be successful, in order to stay competitive, an organization has to continuously reinvent themselves. So Mr. Srivastav is going to talk to us about the concepts that will be helpful for us in improving and rediscovering ourselves continuously. So Mr. Atul Srivastav is a retired general manager of Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited and is a very, very passionate quality management and business excellence consultant. He's an engineering graduate of 1971 and is a qualified senior assessor of CII Exim Award of Excellence. He was lead agency in BHEL for introducing total quality management based on EFQM, which is a European Forum of Quality Management model. And BHEL under his leadership became the first PSU to do so. Post-retirement, he is facilitating PSUs, small and medium scale enterprises in business excellence and quality management, and also has to his credit successful facilitation of PSUs and MSCs in improving systems, enhancing maturity levels, and reducing rework. He is quality champion of NTPC Business Excellence Award and facilitating various stations of NTPC in implementing NTPC Business Excellence model, and and in the process has been catalyst in enhancing maturity level of many NTPC stations. He's also judge in NTPC Quality Circle Conventions and CII National Final Quality Circle Competition. After retirement, his mission is to repay Indian industry for gains in quality discipline during his service life, specifically by facilitating growth in public sector enterprises and small and medium scale enterprises through business excellence model. Mr. Atul Srivastav, very warm welcome, sir, and thank you very much for designing this program specifically for the audience today. So ladies and gentlemen, our second speaker is Mr. Kunal Srivastav. Sorry, Mr. Kunal Parikh. My apologies. So Kunal is also Kunal has a very diverse profile, and I'll introduce him in more detail just before the beginning of his session. Welcome Kunal, and welcome Mr. Atul Srivastav. And once again, thanks to Mr. Mr. Viren Atre and Mr. Chitran Srivastav for leading the Q&A session. Welcome to both the speakers and both the Q&A facilitators here. So before we begin, for the benefit of our speakers today, I would like to start with a small exercise that will help our speakers, Mr. Kunal Parikh and Mr. Atul Srivastav, know the audience a little better. For that, I'll just share my screen, and I'll request all the members who are participating, all the participants, to kindly pay attention to what they see on the screen. Yeah. So I request you to please open menti.com on any of your devices. In case you're using a device to join this meeting, you can use any other device, any mobile phone or any tab or any laptop to go to www.menti.com and input the code that is there on the screen right now, which is 82499994. Please do that, and there will be a question that will pop up on your screen. I request you to answer that question, which is about the number of years of experience that you have. So we just would like to know the experience level of our audience today. So I request all of you to please go to menti.com and enter the code 82499994. So we already have a few responses, and Mr. Atul Srivastav, I hope you can see my screen, sir.
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so sir, this is the response from the audience, and this is by and large the profile of our audience today.
Thank you.
So we already have 40 responses on the screen, 42 now.
That's good. Less than 5 years is 21. Maximum is
Yes.
less
So
than
most of our audience today is having less than 5 years of experience.
That was the target audience we also wanted. That's good.
Yeah. So okay, so we've got a very good number of responses. I think we've got a large audience today. We've got nearly, or rather, 80 responses so far, 83, 84, 85 now. Okay, so we are touching a mark of 100 responses, already crossed 100 now. And so thank you so much, audience, for giving this this enthusiastic participation to this quick poll. So, sir, as you can see that we've got a maximum number of participants who are less than 5 years of experience, followed by the bracket of 5 to 10. And less than 5, when I say, I'm also combining students into it. So we've got maximum number which is below 5. Right. So audience, please pay attention to the screen once again. We will do another exercise. I would okay. So if the responses are still coming in, let's wait for another few seconds. Okay, so we've got 111 responses, and let us stop the poll here. So out of the 111 responses, we see this is the spread. So I hope Kunal and Mr. Atul Srivastav, this information is going to be useful to you as you structure your session today. Now, all the participants, I request you to kindly repeat this exercise with a different. Let me just pop up a different slide on your screen now. So please repeat this. Go to menti.com, enter the same code, which is 8249 sorry 9994 82999994. That's the code, menti.com, and it's the same code that's visible on the screen, and that the same code that you entered just now. Here we would like you to type the domain in which your organization works. Please do not type the code in your response. Just type the domain in which your organization works. It could be automotive, it could be power distribution, waste management, or please do not put the name of your organization. Just put the domain in which it works. All right, so I think we are just nearing the end of the responses. We've got the same, almost equal number of responses to the previous poll. We've already received on this one also. So the participation is indicated by the size of the font. The automotive is visible in the biggest font. That means most of the participants happen to be from the automotive industry, which would also include manufacturing. So there would be, I hope that there's an overlap between automotive and manufacturing, and mattress manufacturing, defense, chemical manufacturing, consulting, packaging, plastic industry, luggage, aerospace, education, logistics, battery assembly, waste management. So there is a lot of diversity here, and we've got a very diverse audience. So which is quite encouraging. In fact, we've got such an enthusiastic participation from different industries today. Really encouraging for us. So I hope Kunal and Mr. Atul Srivastav, this information is helpful to you.
Yes, very much helpful. Very much helpful. And
sure. So I'll stop sharing my screen now, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Atul Srivastav for the first session of the day, which is on quality. Mr. Srivastav, the stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amit, and thanks to ISQ also having given me this opportunity of addressing the academia and those basically who are having less than 5 years experience in quality management. I hope I am audible to everyone, and I do hope that I am visible to everyone also. I am now going to share my presentation and will request Mr. Amit to let me know whether he can see it on the screen.
Yes, sir. Sir, one more thing that I would like to just convey to the audience, that we will be taking Q&A question and answers towards the end of the session. So please type in your questions in the chat box, and Mr. Viren and Mr. Chitransh will be taking a record of that, and we'll take your questions towards the end of the session. So please type your questions in the chat box.
Can you see my screen, please?
Sir, your screen is not visible yet, but we can hear you very clearly.
You can hear me, but my screen is not okay.
Atulji, I think it might help if you share your screen instead of sharing a particular presentation, because that will not come.
Okay, share screen.
Sharing options, when you go to share screen instead of
Yeah.
sharing the PPT.
Okay, I do that.
Yes, now it's coming.
Now it's coming. Okay, that's good.
Yes, it's visible now, sir.
Full screen I am doing. Is full screen available? Are you able to see full screen, please?
Yes,
sir.
please go ahead.
It's visible.
So, good morning, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to me for addressing you the quality basics, the quality, its profound meaning, and endless pursuit. In this session, we'll be starting from very basics of quality, and slowly, we'll be moving towards how the quality has taken shape and how it is helping the organization in its growth. In the process, we'll also be covering the different meanings of inspection, what is quality control, what is quality management, etc. A glimpse of cost of quality and PDCA approach. Friends, the other day I was at my daughter's place, sitting in the living room, and my daughter was talking over a phone to some colleague of hers. She's a big businessman or businesswoman, as we may say. She was saying, "Oh, that organization, theirs is a good quality, so we should continue. Oh, that organization, oh no, that's not a good organization. That's not a quality organization." When she completed her conversations, I asked her, "You said someone quality organization. You said someone is not quality organization. You just tell me the organization to which you said that it's not a quality organization. Why did you say so?" She said, "Papa," she was slightly annoyed. She said, "Papa, we had ordered on them a calibrated instrument. They have supplied the instrument but not the calibration certificate. So I don't think that that organization is a good organization." Also, friends, sometimes we say, "I am more than satisfied." In Hindi, we say, "Paisa vasool." But whereas we say that it's a quality product or it's not a quality product, quite often, "I am more than satisfied" or "paisa vasool," we say very less. We don't use it quite often. What are these? Let us understand. So, the meaning of quality, Amitji, just for a chance, I've changed the slide. I hope the changed slide is available.
Yes, sir. What we see is the quote
quality
by
means.
Joseph Juran.
Yeah, Joseph. So, friends, by quality, it means fitness for use or purpose. But then my daughter said that because he didn't give me the calibration certificate, they are not quality. So that does not fit here. Fitness for use or purpose. Any one of us goes to purchase a pen, a ball pen. What do? We'll just open the pen, scribble it. It is writing, yes, it's good, it's very good. Okay, we bring it. We purchase a car. Is it running? Oh yes, it starts running. Okay, that's good. It is fit for use. We purchase a Tullu pump. Just apply power. Is it running? Yes, it is running. So it is fit for use. But is that only quality? What happens when we come back home and start writing with the same pen and the ink overflows? We find problem in gripping the pen. What happens when the Tullu pump we have purchased, just by checking whether it is able to pump water or not, it starts giving a big noise and it is not able to pump up to the height which we wanted. What happens when the car we purchased is unable to give the fuel consumption which we thought should have? So, fitness for use or purpose, which was the basic meaning of quality, gets now enhanced to a meaning that quality means conformance to requirements specified by customer. So, if I am a customer, I should say, okay, I want a blue ink pen, the grip should be good, it should not overflow, the car should be such that it is able to pick up within few seconds up to 100 kilometers per hour. Its fuel consumption should be such, etc., etc. We specify the requirements, and those requirements which are being satisfied by the product or service, we say is a good quality. But here again, my daughter had said that it is not good quality because they did not provide me the calibration certificate. This just does not satisfy here. I asked her, okay, in your order, did you mention that they have to provide a calibration certificate? She says, no. I didn't order that they have to provide a calibration certificate, but then I am procuring a calibrated instrument, so it is implied that they have to provide me a calibration certificate. So friends, the meaning of quality enhances from here, from fitness for use or purpose to conformance to requirements specified by customer. Now this customer word, please remember, we will be using it again and again and emphasizing more and more on the word customer. So conformance to requirement specified by customers, from here it gets further enhanced to the definition of the quality, which is totality of characteristics and features of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy stated and implied needs. It's sum total of characteristics and features. Many participants from automotive industry are here today. When I purchased a Fiat car in 1984, it was having only a rear view mirror. No side mirrors were there. No radio was there. No player was there. But it was a good car. It was running. It was giving me a good fuel consumption also. But what happens today? A car without side mirrors, is it a car? No, 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 it's not a car. And let me tell you friends, 12 years back, I purchased a car in which side mirrors were there, but they were not motorized. Today, the side mirrors should not only be there, they have to be motorized, they should also have indicators in them. So from no feature at all to a feature that the side mirrors should be there. Not only there, they should be motorized for ease of closing and opening. They should have side indicators also. so that the people at the back or in the front know where I am turning? What are these? Is side mirror a characteristic of an automobile? No, not at all. Then what it is? It is a feature. It is a feature. Friends, given characteristics of any product or service, I am repeating, given characteristics of a product or service, we purchase or procure the product or service based more on features and less on characteristics. Just think automobile. Just think a mobile phone. Yesteryears, when we purchased a mobile phone, it used to only talk and send SMS messages. If today I purchase, somebody says me, I have got a mobile phone with which you can only talk and send SMS message, will any one of us purchase it? No, not at all. Why? Oh no, it should have camera, it should have, it should be a smart phone. What do you mean by smartphone? Oh no, it should be able to do all the computation which my laptop does. So, the features govern as on today, given the characteristics. Don't forget, given the characteristics. Given that characteristics are there, given that not only characteristics are there, they are also improving day by day. It is the features of a product or service which govern in procuring, in purchasing the product or service. Therefore, the definition of quality or meaning of quality is the totality, sum total of characteristics and features of a product or service. Something more. The feature which was not yesterday and is today, we procure because of the features, fine. But then over the period, my dear friends, the feature becomes a characteristics. Feature becomes a characteristic. I was going to purchase a car few months back. It was not having a rear view camera. One particular model of a car, it was not having rear view camera. But it was very much suiting my budget. I said, let me purchase. But then my son and son-in-law, both of them said, oh, no. A car without rear view camera is not a car. You should be able to see when you are reversing a car. Our automotive friends will agree with me. So, the features become characteristics over a period. Therefore, if I have to be a vigilant businessman, if I want to be a growing organization, I have to foresee the features which could come in the forthcoming years. And these features will come from where? They will come from the implied needs of a customer. So, totality of characteristics and features of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy stated and implied needs. More than stated, it is implied needs. More than stated. A successful organization is the one who foresees the implied needs of a customer and builds the implied need into the product or services to be amongst the forefront runner or the first in the industry to grow. I'll give you an example of 4G. When 4G came years back in our country, the Airtel people could see the requirement, and they were first to bring it. Later on, some other took it, but then somebody could become the first in bringing 4G, so also in 5G. Therefore, friends, let us remember, let it become the day that if I mean quality, I mean totality of characteristics and features of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy stated and implied needs. Implied needs of whom? Implied needs of whom? Not only customer, that of internal customer also. Internal customer is more important than external customer. Please do take my words. If we are able to satisfy my internal customer, I will be able to satisfy my external customer. Who else? Implied needs and stated needs of who else? What about statutory regulatory bodies? The stated and implied needs given by statutory bodies, given by regulatory requirements. So now, when my daughter orders a calibrated instrument, the implied need is that we have to provide a calibration certificate also along with the product, if it was not stated. If it was stated, certainly, if it was stated in the order, certainly I have to provide. But even if it was not stated, I have to provide as implied need of the customer. An organization sells a boiler. So the implied need is that the boiler should be as per the IBR requirements. The boiler should not give any harm to environment. So implied needs of environment as well. Today, safety has become prime. And let us see our automotive industry again. From no airbags in yesteryears to 6 airbags today. Why? Because it is implied need. And in days to come, it is going to become a stated need or a characteristic of the product. Therefore, friends, quality is one which meets the stated and implied needs in the form of its characteristics and features. One more point. We procure a pen. A pen can be of 6 rupees. It could be of 5,000 rupees as well. A 5,000 rupees pen, a Parker pen, we feel proud in keeping it in our pocket in a good suit when we are going for a good meeting or things like that. This is the feature of the product. Here comes the concept of grading. Here comes the concept of grading. Is nano car fit for use? Yes, it is fit for use. Does nano car conform to the requirements of the customer? Yes, it does. But then, what is the difference between a nano car or a Honda City car or Suzuki car, Desire car, Honda City car, Audi car, Mercedes car, BMW car? Every such car is fit for use. They are meeting the conformance. But then, as we build characteristics, go on building more and more characteristics, go and go on building more and more features into the product, the grade increases. The grade is a higher grade. A very, very simple and a very enjoyable example I will give you. There is marriage in the house, in the family. My son is getting married. So the family goes to a sari shop, a good sari shop in Chandni Chowk of Delhi, and says, "Jara sariyan dikhaiye." The shopkeeper, without showing even a single sari, what does he ask? He asks, "Sab sari kiske liye chahiye?" साड़ी बहू के लिए चाहिए कि साड़ी लड़के की बहन के लिए चाहिए कि साड़ी लड़के की माँ के लिए चाहिए कि साड़ी लेने देने के लिए चाहिए डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द रिक्वायरमेंट वी टेल हिम he shows the sari. So my dear friends, as we go on adding the characteristics and features in a product to meet stated and implied needs of a customer, the grade or level of the product goes on increasing. Please don't confuse that higher grade costs more. No, not at all. Higher grade does not cost more. Higher grade costs the same which that grade should cost for the particular characteristic and feature. But yes, when there are 2 or 3 products of the same grade, then there is a competition and it has to meet the competition. Therefore, the quality gets slightly enhanced in its meaning, and it is not only now meeting and anticipating customers' requirements stated and implied, it moves further ahead. The quality is now not only at a given time, it is over a period of time. Not only today, for years to come, I should be able to provide stated and implied needs of a customer. Which customer? Internal as well as external. And at a price the customer can afford and is willing to pay. A customer who wants to purchase a car of Audi grade, okay, there is a particular cost range of it, say perhaps 30 to 40, I am not at all sure. A Mercedes car 50 to 60 lakhs, okay. A Honda City level car, okay, 10 to 12 lakhs. So if I am looking towards a customer for my Honda City car, please don't take, I am using some names because they are popular, that's all. Then a price customer can afford. I have to make that grade of cars with those characteristics and those features at a price the customer can afford and is willing to pay. How to make the price a customer is able to pay and how to make it competitive, we will hear after a few slides. How to make it happen. Where the money goes in the drain, we will see after a few slides. So quality is also introducing new and better products into the market faster than the competitor. How will it happen? It will happen by adding more and more characteristics and features in my product. It will happen by foreseeing, by being future ready for the implied needs of a customer, understanding what are the implied needs of a customer and building those implied needs into the characteristics and features of the product will give me new and better products into the market faster than the competitor. What else? Continuously bringing down the cost of production and reducing waste. It has got something to do with the same, that at a price the customer can afford and is willing to pay. How can it happen? Continuously bringing down the cost of production and reducing waste. How it can happen? We'll see when we try to understand what is inspection and what is quality control and what is cost of quality. Further, quality is bringing innovativeness and creativity in all processes. We innovate, we create, we use our creativity in our processes for many things. Number one, building the implied needs of a customer, building the standard characteristics into the product or service, building the features into the product or service through our processes, reducing our process waste. My friend Kunal will be talking more on the process. What is process? What are those things? While on cost of quality, I will talk on some waste. So, if we adhere and if we very clearly understand that quality means a totality of characteristics and features, then we also understand that we have to use our innovativeness and creativity in our processes. We have to make our processes more and more profitable. Non-value adding activities, reduce and eliminate non-value adding activities from our processes is quality. So, all this will give us a product or service in which my customer will be more than satisfied. This more than satisfied, we use very less. There is a difference then between more than satisfied and satisfied. The customer is satisfied if QCDS, quality, cost, delivery and service after sales, they have in mind is met. But a customer is more than satisfied, that is, a customer is delighted when the value perceived, the perception, the perseverance, the value perceived by the customer is much more than the price in money paid by the customer. Then a customer will say, oh, paisa vasool. We go to a restaurant, come out of it, aaj paisa vasool ho gaya. We see a movie, come out, aaj paisa vasool ho gaya. We purchase a product and say, aaj paisa vasool ho gaya. I am more than satisfied with this organization because the value I got from the product or service is much more than the price I have paid in hard cash and hard money. Friends, these are 5 fingers of quality. Please remember, these are 5 fingers of quality. Number 1, meeting and anticipating customers' requirements, stated and implied need is the foremost. By doing so, introducing new and better products, continuously bringing down the cost of production, bringing innovativeness, and trying to have customer delight more than a customer satisfaction. So, who is the boss? Who decides quality? Is the question. Who decides quality? It is customer, whether internal or external. Internal customer, as per me, is more important than external customer. My dear friends, I am repeating. Make your internal customer happy. Your external customer will certainly be happy, will certainly be satisfied. So, it is the customer who decides quality, whether internal customer or external customer. and understanding and satisfying customer needs and expectations is key to quality. Is key to quality, and here the quality means key for growth, key to growth. How the quality can give me growth? We have seen in the previous slide. By innovativeness, by creativeness, by reducing cost of production and things like that. So make our customer, internal or external, happy. Understand what they want, what are their implied needs, and build those implied needs and their stated needs into the product or services, and will be on the very good growth path. With this, let us come to the meaning. They are very, very confusing at times. If you say you are in quality department, okay, so you are doing inspection. No, sir, I am not at all doing inspection. So then what quality? Yes, I am in quality department. There will be many friends of quality department in the audience today. What do we do? Do we do only inspection? No. Do we do quality control? Yes. Do we do quality assurance? Sir, quality assurance क्या होता है? Okay, I will tell you. Do we do quality management? Sir, management तो होता है. What is the meaning of quality management? Okay, let us understand. What do we mean by inspection? What do we mean by quality control? What do we mean by quality assurance and management? Here comes inspection. Inspection is nothing but verifying that product or service meets specification requirements, conformance to specification. Whether the specification, if I have stated characteristic requirement, if I have stated feature requirement, if I have stated that my pen should have a good grip, then I have to inspect that the pen is having a good grip. If I have stated that my pen should have green ink, I have to inspect that the pen is having green ink. Which green ink? Mera wala green. Arey, what is this mera wala green? Mera wala green is the shade card. So specification required. If I have specified. So verifying that product meets specification requirements is nothing but inspection. But then, which specification requirements? Stated requirements. My dear friends, stated requirements pertaining to both characteristics and features, if they are stated. The implied requirements. Now, our automotive friends who are in the manufacturing, if we are purchasing, if we are manufacturing the engine also of the automobile, then are we manufacturing crankshaft or we are procuring? Okay, we are procuring the crankshaft. Fine. So we procure the crankshaft and it is having lots of burrs in it. Arey, what is this? Lots of burrs, reject the product. Sir, where have you written that it should not have burrs? Baba, it is implied, it is a crankshaft. Forget a crankshaft, even a nail. If it is having wasters, we will not purchase a nail, which is of few paisas. We will not purchase a nail, which is having wasters in it. So, we have to inspect both the stated requirements as well as the implied requirements. Inspection is therefore a defect detection. We go with an eye to detect a defect. If we don't go with an eye to detect the defects, we will not be able to do a proper inspection. So, detect defect. What to inspect, how much to inspect, who to inspect, all those are a different subject. Perhaps sometimes ISQ might take up on these things also, that how to do a good inspection, how to plan a good inspection and things like that. But defect detection is inspection. Inspection, my dear friends, is a post-mortem activity. post-mortem activity. We talked of that inspection is nothing but verifying that product meets specification requirements. Let us talk something on this specifications. Let us be very, very clear, without any doubt, no ifs and buts. My dear friends, specifications are given by customer, external or internal. Specifications are not given by the process owner. If I am manufacturing a crankshaft, what should be its tolerances is not given by me. It's given by my designer, who is my internal customer. I cannot have my own specification. Specification is given by customer. Let it be very, very clear. And external to the process. They are external to the process. They are not in the process. I have to build my product such that it meets the specification required. I as a producer, I as a process owner cannot change the specification to meet my process, to meet the specification requirement. I cannot change. I just cannot change. So, inspection is nothing but defect detection in order to meet the specification requirements, and specifications are given by internal or external customers, and that they cannot be changed to suit our process. This is very important. We cannot change the specifications. Going ahead further, if that is so, if inspection is a post-mortem activity, can inspection prevent occurrence of defects? Basically, no. But at times, yes also. But this yes with a very big yes with a very big if. Yes, but in next cycle of operation, provided the data is available, provided causes of rejections are analyzed, process improvements undertaken in a systematic manner using the causes of rejections, going into the root cause of rejections. My friend Kunal will be touching upon various tools for improvements. In that you will find something like Pareto analysis for identifying root cause. You will find check sheet for identifying which cause is the highest cause and things like that. So, causes of rejection are analyzed, and then not only analyze, हाँ पता तो पड़ गया कि दाल में नमक क्यों कम पड़ा, लेकिन फिर आगे कभी इम्प्रूव नहीं किया, सो इम्प्रूवमेंट होगा कभी नहीं होगा. Process improvements are undertaken in a systematic manner. Further, what happens to the next cycle of operation? ये वाला operation में तो हमने ठीक कर दिया. So, improvements are institutionalized to prevent recurrence and control the processes. What does it mean? You will hear on the next Saturday about quality management systems. So, what we do is, whatsoever improvements we do in the process, we revise our quality management systems so that in the next cycle of operation, I prevent recurrence and I control my process. Ultimately, okay, all these things we have done, but then it is the management. It is the management which ensures that improved system is implemented. Friends, to understand this in a very summary manner, it is that the problem that the product or service did not meet the specification requirement is a technical problem, what we do is we convert it into a statistical requirement of data. We do statistical analysis and try to bring a statistical solution. Then we convert that statistical solution into a technical problem, a technical solution, and then undertake management decisions to implement those technical solutions. This is the cycle of doing improvements. Ultimately, what I have to do is I have to control my process using the data available from my inspection activity so that the defects do not recur. From here, we come to the chapter of quality control. What to control? What to control? We have to control the process. We have to control the process. Product or services by eliminating or reducing causes in a process. There are causes which make my process behave that a defective product is produced. Therefore, I have to control my process by eliminating and reducing the causes. It is done by establishing controls or control limits under which the process should operate so as to meet specification requirements. Specification requirements. So specifications cannot be changed, but my control limits can be changed. So I have to make my control limits such that they meet the specification requirements. Ensuring that variations in a process are due to chance cause only and detect and remove assignable causes before they damage the product. Why do we give tolerance limits? Say the tolerance limits are 25 plus minus 0.2 of any characteristic. Why do we give? Because we know that variations are inevitable in any product. Variations will be there. Whatsoever best efforts we may use, we cannot produce the dia of 25 mm exactly 25.00. There will be some variation. So the designer permits the variation from 24.8 to 25.2. So whenever such variations are there, they are because of chance cause. These chance causes are many. They are difficult to reduce. It is generally uneconomical to reduce the chance cause, and a lot of efforts will be required to reduce the chance causes in order to control my process. This, if we are able to reduce my chance cause, I am able to do lean manufacturing. Leaner the variation. But then there are certain chance causes are therefore, before going to assignable cause, chance causes are therefore within the process. They are many. They are difficult to be removed. They are uneconomical. They are time consuming. A lot of efforts are required to remove or eliminate them or reduce them. But then we have something known as assignable causes. Assignable causes are the causes which are easy to remove. which are easy to detect and which are primarily there in the process, they come from external and they primarily damage my product. Assignable causes, our aim should be first to identify assignable causes and remove them. Thereafter, what does quality control does? It does defect prevention from a process. How it does? We will see from a very simple chart, control chart. I will not go into the details of the control chart. This session is not for that purpose. But we will understand how defect prevention is done from a process using control charts. Quality control is a proactive activity, whereas inspection is not a proactive activity. Inspection is a defect detection. The quality control is a proactive activity. It prevents defects from entering a process and thereby meeting the specification requirements. So, my dear friends, quality control includes inspection. Otherwise, how will I know whether I am working within the control limits or not? Let us see some example. Here is a typical control chart. UCL means upper control limit, LCL means lower control limit, LSL means lower specification limit, and USL means upper specification limit. If the variations are such as shown in this figure, it means that the process is operating only because of chance cause. It is operating between the upper control limits and lower control limits, and also it is within the specification limits. So, whereas my process is okay, it is also meeting my specification requirements, so there will not be any rejections. But instead of this ideal situation, this situation is something like this. The USL and LSL are within UCL and LCL. What happens? We clearly see that there will be rejections. Rejection is inevitable. And if rejections are inevitable, what do we have to do in quality control? We have to control the process. My dear friend, Mr. Kunal will be touching upon process control also to some extent. So, process is to be controlled so as to be operated only within the specification limits. That means in this particular case, I have to reduce my LCL and UCL, my control limits. I have to bring them back such that they are in this position, that they are within the specification limits. So the quality control, my dear friends, does the work of controlling the process such that the process is operating not only within control limits, but also the control limits are within the specification limits. From inspection quality control, we now move on to quality assurance. Assure whom? Assure whom? Assure both customer, internal and external, assure regulatory bodies, assure consumer, assure anyone with connected with my product or service that my product or service shall satisfy stated and implied needs. stated and implied needs of statutory regulations, stated and implied needs of consumer, stated and implied needs of environment, stated and implied needs of designer. The stated and implied needs, how they are assured? They are assured first by very clearly understanding the contractual requirements. From the contractual requirement, we have to find out what are the implied needs, what are the stated needs, what all needs to be done in the product, how to build a quality product through contractual means. The designer has to find out and then design the product such that it meets all the stated and implied needs, including statutory requirements, environment requirements, etc., etc. The designer has to ensure that the performance shall be, he has to design such that the performance shall be as per the requirements, and the manufacturing department has to manufacture such that the performance will be as per the specifications, the product or service will be reliable, it will be easy to maintain the product or service, it will be environment friendly, etc., 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 many more. So, quality assurance is planned and systematic actions. They have to be planned. They have to be systematic actions. Planned is to be underlined. Planned and systematic actions that provides confidence to the customer that product or service delivered by me shall satisfy stated and implied needs. Friends, quality assurance is a broad concept that focuses on entire quality system or entire system of the organization, from supplier to ultimate consumer. Quality assurance also includes the suppliers. I have to assure my customer, my consumer, that whatsoever I will produce, whatsoever I will supply, will meet the stated and implied needs. So, if I am procuring a crankshaft, or if I am procuring forgings, if I am procuring castings, if I am procuring raw material, fabric, or anything, any raw material, any bought out raw material or bought out, I am procuring steel, I am procuring pipes, I am procuring bought outs like crankshaft, I am procuring O-rings. When I am procuring O-rings, when I am procuring material, when I am procuring bought outs, those bought outs and material have also to meet the stated and implied needs of the customer whenever they make my product. Therefore, I have to ensure that my supplier is also a supplier who controls quality, who undertakes inspections, who brings improvements. All these concepts lead to quality management systems. So, quality assurance is a broad concept that focuses on entire system of the organization, from supplier to ultimate consumer of the product or service. It includes all activities designed to production, dispatch, and after sales. What about after sales? Yes, if after sales is not as per the requirement, then the customer will not be happy, customer will not be delighted, customer will not say, oh, paisa vasool. No, they will not say. So, quality assurance also includes what shall be the after sales service. Somebody says, the guarantee of my fan will be of 8 years. Very good. Somebody says the guarantee will be only 4 years of my fan. Where will I go? I will go to purchase the fan which is of 8 years guarantee, given everything else same. So, after sales service also. Then, planning to ensure defect-free product or service. How will I produce a defect-free service? What shall be my process? What shall be the resources of my process? What shall be the controls I have to exercise on my process? All these things you will see when my dear friend Mr. Kunal deals with process concept. So, planning to ensure defect-free product or service, anticipating problems and providing for alternatives, and the quality assurance aspects should be able to provide warning signal during the processing. This control chart method is a very good method to provide warnings. Moving ahead from here, friends, we come to the concept of cost of quality. Cost of quality are the costs associated with poor quality products or service and for ensuring quality. For doing anything, we have to incur cost, isn't it? So for ensuring quality also, we have to incur cost. For poor quality products also, we have to incur cost, which we can save. The quality costs are generally of 4 categories: internal failure cost, external failure cost, appraisal cost, and prevention cost. Let us very quickly touch upon, we can't go into much details in this little time we have with us, but still we will try to understand the concept behind these costs. Internal failure cost. My dear friends, what happens when defects are detected by inspection before dispatch inside my factory? What happens? What do I do with that product when defects are detected? What do? I do rework. Send the product for rework. I do reprocessing, which may or may not require additional material and consumables. So, I am incurring cost in procuring additional material consumables. I am incurring cost in manpower, which I don't have to do. आज हमारी श्रीमती जी ने दाल बनाई, दाल कच्ची रह गई. How much bad she feels. दाल कच्ची रह गई. Oh, नमक डालना भूल गया. How much bad she feels. टाई की नॉट बांध रहे हैं, नॉट अच्छी नहीं आई. How bad we feel. अरे उसमें क्या है, 1 सेकंड में या 10 सेकंड में दोबारा नॉट बन जाएगा. नो, the time is wasted. Those 10 seconds are also very precious. दाल को दोबारा पकाना पड़ेगा. It is very precious for her. चाहे 10 मिनट लगे, चाहे 5 मिनट लगे. Time. So, rework and reprocessing involves cost. Which cost? Not only man or woman also. At times I was giving a lecture, somebody said, sir, what about women? Yes, women also. So, man, machine, material, methods, all these cost money. So, rework or reprocessing for additional material, consumables, disassembly, reassembly, cost money. Change, at times we change mating parts without contractual obligations, but compromising interchangeability. We do it. Piston rings में देखिए हम लोग करते हैं कि नहीं करते? O-rings में हम लोग करते हैं कि नहीं करते? We do change mating parts. Compromising interchangeability. So we have to do rework or reprocessing. Reinspection. Once we do reworking, so reinspection or retesting is required. Downgrading. Sometimes when it is not possible to bring it back to the given requirements, we have to downgrade the product. जो एक साड़ी डॉटर की मैरिज में मदर के लिए थी, वो साड़ी अब देने लेने के लिए अब हम देंगे. I have downgraded it. It costs money. I have to ultimately reject it. I cannot use it. So scrap. Just जो भी कुछ पैसा गया उस प्रोडक्ट को बनाने में सब स्क्रैप हो गया. My dear friends, what else it happens when products does not meet the requirements? Delayed delivery resulting in customer dissatisfaction. So, additional cost of manpower, material, machining, etc. Let me tell you as a very rough estimate. After the program, someone from automotive industry can tell me a rough estimate. How much is the percentage of cost of rework and rejection for forget anything else, of rework and rejection in the factory? It will be anywhere depending upon the industry, depending upon how much quality control we do. It will be anywhere between 5 to 30%. What happens? What happens when we save this 5 to 30%? Not only money, man hours, the material, etc., etc. What happens? We are able to provide a product or services at a lesser cost, at a price the customer can afford and is willing to pay. We are able to bring down the cost of production, which we saw that a few slides back. That quality means continuously bringing down the cost of production. How to bring it down? By reducing these failure costs. Let us control our processes such that the failure costs are minimal or zero. And my dear friends, customer never pays for failure cost. आपके यहाँ 30% रिजेक्शन हुआ, आपके यहाँ 2% रिजेक्शन हुआ, आपके यहाँ 0.5% रिजेक्शन हुआ या रीवर्क हुआ, customer will never pay it for it. Customer will only pay for good what they receive. Going ahead, failure cost. What happens when defects are detected at customer premises? The repairs, we have to do repairs at customer premises, which may or may not require transportation, re-transportation to works and back, reworking, reprocessing, transportation, retransportation, कितना खर्चा होता है? फिर वर्क्स में लाओ, चाहे कस्टमर के यहाँ करो, reprocessing, reworking, re-inspection, retesting, all these things are there. Warranty obligations, opportunity cost, warranty obligations, customer dissatisfaction leading to bad perception. My dear friends, if somebody has got a good perception about me, it takes seconds. एक चुटकी बजाया and good perception becomes a bad perception. Right. So customer dissatisfaction leading to bad perception, additional cost of manpower, material, transport, repackaging, etc. Customer does not pay for this. Appraisal cost is nothing but cost incurred to determine that specification requirements are met. This includes cost of inspection, inspection of quality control, destructive tests, etc., etc., etc. So that is appraisal cost, and last but not the least is prevention cost, the cost associated with preventing defects, that is keeping errors out of the process through process control. It requires training, manpower approval like welder approval, etc., capability studies, prototype tests, quality planning, etc., etc., etc. Prevention cost leads to minimize failure and appraisal cost and reduce defect. So the best would be that have more prevention cost and less failure and appraisal cost. Defect is opposite of quality. Anything that dissatisfies customer is a defect. Customer requirements are dynamic, as we have seen. Lower the defects and wastages, lower cycle time, lower cost of production, higher customer satisfaction, higher people satisfaction, higher profits, and higher growth of an organization. This brings us to the last aspect, quality management. Quality management includes planning, control, and improvements. It's aspect of overall management to meet, exceed stated and implied needs of customer through these three aspects: quality planning, quality control, and quality improvement. Maximizing customer satisfaction and lowest cost through improved process and systems is quality management. Managing activities and optimizing resources of an organization to achieve and sustain excellence by preventing non-conformance. It includes customer focus, leadership, involvement of people, systems approach, process improvements, supplier chain, etc., etc. My dear friends, quality management leads to total quality management. With this, we come to the last approach, one of the last approach, the PDCA approach, PDCA circle or Deming circle. PDCA, as the name suggests, P is for planning. Planning the objectives and plans. 2, implementing the plans. Check. Observe the process and evaluate results. And act. Take appropriate actions. Standardize if results are satisfied. Otherwise, replan and follow the cycle again. Slightly blown up figure of this PDCA. Plan. You have to plan both what to achieve and how to achieve. Once done that, we have to educate and provide training to achieve what we have planned. We have to implement whatsoever plans we have made to achieve what we want to achieve, and then evaluate results. Evaluate results with respect to what we had planned to achieve, whether we are able to achieve what we had planned. And if by any chance we are not able to achieve what we had planned, we have to check our how to achieve, the plans to achieve, improvise the plans. So improve process and prevent recurrence. Friends, this PDCA cycle is applicable to any function of the organization: finance function, manufacturing function, planning function, design function, any function. You will see my friend Kunal will also be speaking something on this PDCA. So friends, till then, let us summarize what is quality. Not only fitness for use or only meeting the conformance requirements. Quality is totality of features and characteristics of a product or service that provide a confidence to the customer, that have or that bear in its ability to meet stated and implied needs of a customer. Which customer? Both internal and external customer, also statutory requirements, also regulatory requirements, also environment requirements, etc., etc. If we want to grow at a faster rate. If we want to introduce product lesser than the cost of my competitor, I have to reduce my rework and rejections by doing it first, by doing it right first time and doing it right every time. My dear friends, this is how the quality has changed over the years, from inspection to total quality management. Inspection, quality control, quality management system, Six Sigma, etc., and total quality management. So, what have we learned? We have learned is quality is never by accident. It is result of intelligent planned efforts, as said by John Ruskin. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, perhaps I exceeded some time, but then it required. So I'm sorry for that if I exceeded some time. Thank you very much, my dear friends. Over to Mr. Amit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Srivastav. It was a rather very insightful session, and I don't think that anybody was feeling that it exceeded the time. Rather, we were feeling that the time is flying by. So, thank you so much for this session, sir. Now, in the interest of time, I suggest that we take the question and answers together at the end of both the sessions. And in case the time does not permit today, we can always take all the Q&A in the next week session also. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my duty now to invite our next speaker, who is going to talk about process management, process improvement, and 7 QC tools, Mr. Kunal Parekh. Kunal, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you I know him for the last few years, and I can assure you that this session is going to be full of energy, full of innovative and insightful things, and I'm sure Kunal is going to make it extremely interesting. So Kunal happens to be a power engineer with the LLB and MBA. Look at the diversity in his profile, which is sincerely worth appreciation. So he's a power engineer, LLB and MBA by qualification, and he has worked with Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited for over 16 years in diverse roles entailing operations, projects, engineering, procurement, safety, strategy, performance management, business excellence, and HR. He's honorary secretary of Indian Society for Quality, NCR chapter, and is driving the TQM movement in the NCR chapter. He is also certified lead auditor of ISO 9001:2015 and certified advanced TQM, and has certified for and has received certification for advanced TQM training by none other than Dr. Kano himself. Mr. Kunal Parekh is a Six Sigma Green Belt champion and Tata Business Excellence model, which is TBEM, and TQM activities such as implementation of TQM, ISO certifications, 5S continuous improvement, and knowledge management across his organization, which is Tata Power. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kunal. Kunal, thanks to you for taking out the time and designing this program especially for our audience today. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Amit, for that kind introduction and giving me that platform. Thank you to the ISQ team for allowing me the opportunity of sharing the knowledge that I have. I hope that I would be adding some value to the participants here. So without taking much time, I think we need to also cover up time. So I'll just start off with my session. So Amit, just to check, I hope my screen is visible to you now.
Yes, the screen is visible, Kunal.
Great, thank you. I'll just put it on full screen. I'll use a pointer. Yes, so I'll take it on from here. So a very good afternoon to all the participants once again. We had a wonderful session by Mr. Atul Srivastav setting up the tone and the foundation. And after such a stalwart taking that session, but I will have to make much more effort to keep up to the energy and enthusiasm that he portrayed. But I'll try to give the greatest value that is possible. So I take it on from where Mr. Atul Srivastav he left the thread. So while we talk about the overall quality management and quality as a whole, how do we actually do it? So in my session, I'll try to cover more of the how part of it, as to how do we actually build in quality in our systems, and how do we do it through a process management approach, a process improvement approach, and using certain tools which will specify as to how we can look at those aspects and how can we remove the defects, so to say, in our system. So I start off with first on the process concept. So while we do talk about quality as a whole, but how do we get it implemented? So first and foremost, we need to have a system in place. Now, that system has to be something which is easy to follow, which is easy to understand, and which each and every person can relate with. So nothing other than process is what signifies that particular aspect. So we first understand what a process is from a layman's perspective. I know most of you would have heard this terminology many a times, but just to refresh and brush our concepts again. So what do we see, or what do we call as a process? So it's ideally when we talk about the customer's requirements, when we say that, yes, a customer meeting quality is about meeting the stated and implied needs of the customers, those requirements have to be converted into particular the technical specifications that we have in our terminology. Now, those technical specifications have to be met. How do we meet that? So for there, we get the idea of using a process. That's where the process comes into place, wherein we see that there is a set of activities that will convert those inputs which we receive from our customers and then deliver the output, which is what the customer is desiring. So that's what a process eventually does. So it becomes the most important link of any quality management system. And if in case we do not have the processes in place and they are not laying a strong foundation, then our quality management system will never take off. So this is the, I would say, foundation and the laying stone, the cornerstone for any good organization, for a organization that is looking to work well and to improve the processes. And I could also see that there was certain request on using both Hindi and English, so I'll try to keep it mixed and match. So अगर हम इसको समझें एक आसान भाषा में, तो जो भी हम कार्य करें, जो भी हम अपनी एक्टिविटीज करें, वो एक निर्धारित तरीके से करनी चाहिए। अगर वो सलीका निर्धारित नहीं है, अगर वो तरीका निर्धारित नहीं है, तो वो हमेशा किसी न किसी को परेशानी आती रहेगी, और कोई किसी तरीके से करेगा, कोई अलग तरीके से करेगा। सो व्हेन वी हैव टू गिव दैट आउटपुट, या फिर जो कस्टमर चाहता है उसको हम बार-बार वो चीज़ दें, सो फॉर दैट वी नीड टू हैव अ प्रोसेस इन प्लेस। सो टू जस्ट समराइज, सो व्हाट इट इज़ ऑल अबाउट कि इनपुट्स हम कैसे लेते हैं, हम कैसे समझते हैं कि कस्टमर्स को क्या चाहिए, उन इनपुट्स को हम कैसे अपना वैल्यू एडिशन करते हैं, दैट इज व्हाट डज द कंपनी एक्चुअली डू। द कंपनीज पर्पस और जॉब इज टू ऐड वैल्यू टू द इनपुट्स दैट वन हैज and then produce and provide the customers the desired outputs. Now, when we talk about internal and external customers, internal customers are within the organization, all right? For example, जैसे हम कोई भी काम करते हैं as a group, जैसे आपका अगर हम बात करें in terms of the manufacturing, there could be one department which is looking at the supply management of the material, while the other is looking at the operational aspects, जो material को लेके process करके and then it is getting the product ready. So while the supplier, the supply chain management team, it is not directly, it may not be directly interacting with the customer, or the operations teams may not be directly interacting with the customer, but their output is part of the entire value stream. तो जो भी कंपनी कस्टमर को देती है, there are multiple groups that are working. It is not that one process or one team is working at a time. It is a number of processes which are working in tandem, which are working one after the other, just like a chain. And एक का process का input will result into the value addition that the group provides, and that output will then be input to the other group. So the other group which is getting the output of one of the internal groups, that becomes an internal customer. So that means कि वो कस्टमर बाहर के नहीं है, लेकिन अगर हम अपना काम ठीक से ना करें, जैसे अगर मैं कोई काम ठीक से ना करूं किसी जिस ऐसे ग्रुप को जिसका मेरा आउटपुट जा रहा है, then that group will be dissatisfied. और आपस में भी आप लोग देखते होंगे कि हम कई बारी वी ट्राई टू ब्लेम द अदर ग्रुप कि भाई हमारा काम हम कैसे इंप्रूव करें, हमारे पास जो मटेरियल आता है वही डिफेक्टिव होता है, या हमें जो बताया जाता है ऑपरेशंस की टीम ये कहती है कि भाई हमारे पास मटेरियल टाइमली नहीं आता है, या फिर सेल्स की टीम कहती है कि भाई ऑपरेशंस टीम जो है उसका आउटपुट प्रॉपर नहीं है. सो व्हाट डज दिस मीन? दिस मीन्स दैट आवर इंटरनल कस्टमर्स आर नॉट working in tandem. So while we do have to satisfy the external customers, but first we need to see that internal customers हमारे in sync काम कर रहे हैं कि नहीं, क्या एकजुट होके काम कर रहे हैं कि नहीं, एज अ होल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन काम कर रहे हैं कि नहीं इंटीग्रेटेड मैनर में. अगर ये ग्रुप्स आपस में बात नहीं करेंगे, अगर ये ग्रुप्स आपस में नहीं अपने इनपुट्स एंड आउटपुट्स को मैच करेंगे, तो इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू मीट व्हाट द कस्टमर इज एक्चुअली डिजायरिंग. So that in a nutshell is to differentiate between the external and internal customers. So based on this, if we understand through a simple flow diagram, then what do we actually get from the customers is an input, right? वो हमें अपने expectations बताएंगे, वो हमें desires बताएंगे, वो हमें implied needs, stated needs देंगे. उन stated needs से we try to process it into an implied need. And then understanding those needs and those voices, we try to then create a value out of what the resources that we have. Now, after that value addition is what we give the customer as an output. For example, आप जैसे manufacturing में हम example लेते हैं कि there are multiple parts available, right? अब जो एक गाड़ी बनाई जाती है, it is not just a single part, it is multiple parts which are there. So while there are multiple parts, but they do not have any value if they are seen in isolation. उनको अगर हम अलग देखेंगे तो उनकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. बट जब वो एक साथ मिलते हैं, जब उनको कनेक्ट किया जाता है, जब उनको सिस्टमैटिकली अरेंज किया जाता है, तब जाके हमारी एक गाड़ी बनती है. So that arrangement of the entire system, that getting the parts together, that finishing of the entire product, that is the value addition that one does. And then ultimately the output जो है customer को क्या दिखता है, it is just the vehicle that is visible from the outside. The customer may not know what is there inside the engine or the various parts that are there in the automotive, but what it actually feels is while he drives, that वो ड्राइविंग में जो उनको कंफर्ट चाहिए, वो जो ड्राइविंग में उनको स्मूथनेस चाहिए या फिर एफिशिएंसी चाहिए, वो उनकी नीड्स हैं. उन नीड्स को मीट करने के लिए हमने अपने प्रोसेसेस बनाए हैं, और उन प्रोसेसेस के हर एक आउटपुट के ऊपर हमारा एक मेजरमेंट टूल है which helps us to assess वेदर द कस्टमर की जो नीड्स थी वो हमने करेक्टली ट्रांसलेट करी, और उस ट्रांसलेशन को हम किस हद तक मीट कर पा रहे हैं. दैट इज व्हाट द मेजरमेंट ऑफ क्वालिटी does to understand is. Like Atul sir mentioned, that quality is about meeting the needs. So how do we ensure that the needs are met over the time? It is through a process approach, and उस प्रोसेस का जो आउटपुट है वो हम कॉन्स्टेंटली मेजर करें अगेंस्ट द स्टेटेड नीड्स एंड implied needs that we have understood from the customer. That's where the overall improvement of the system happens. So now I move on to the next one. So how do we actually do these value adding activities? So हम कैसे कर सकते हैं इसको? So these are nothing but the resources that an organization has. तो जो हमारे organizations देखती हैं, it is simplified in these 5 M's. So it is about the human resource that we have. It is about the machines and equipment that we have. It is about the materials that we use, raw materials in any manner that we do. Then the methods and the processes that we develop to do, जो standard operating procedures होते हैं हमारे, वो. And then the resources also come from the mother earth. So while there is environment, we try to take raw materials in the form of water, in the form of air, in the form of various other materials that are available in the natural surroundings that we have. So all of this helps us in adding value in the way that we work. So while the organizations do set up factories, they do set up systems, machines, उन सबको रन करने के लिए अगर हम उनको समराइज करें तो ये 5 M में हम उनको आसानी से समराइज कर सकते हैं, राइट? सो दिस इज जस्ट एन अंडरस्टैंडिंग सेक. या
Kunal, I'm sorry to interrupt. There is some feedback from the audience to continue in English only, as there are people who've joined from various parts of the country.
Understood. So I'll try to keep it in English then. So while we do talk about maintaining our systems, these systems have to be necessarily they should pertain to these 5 M's, and this is a categorization to make it easy in understanding. You can add more M's to it, but based on the past experiences and the researches that the esteemed professionals have done, it has been easily seen that these 5 are the major categories under which are the resources get categorized, and these are then used into the value added activities that we do. Then we come on to the end part of it, that while we do have an output, but how do we measure that output? So output measurement again is done through these four aspects, which is the quality or performance of that particular product, the cost at which that product is produced and it is finally delivered, the delivery in the time of the cycle time that is done, in what time period we are able to produce the output that we are looking at, and then ultimately the service or the after sales that we do. That once the product gets delivered, how do we look at the after sales? What are the customers experiencing? How can we improve that? And how can we further make our systems and processes developed? So these are the four, again, aspects which we look at the output. And while we do talk about these, now we have also added elements like productivity. We have added elements like morale. We have added elements like safety. We have added elements like environment. So while these four were the initial ones, now we call it as P, Q, C, D, S, M, E. So it is now more elaborate, but this always remains the core. So this is the reason of any organization's working. And while we do parameterize our outputs, these four aspects have to be taken care at all point of time. Otherwise, the effectiveness of our processes may not be ensured. All right. So here again, we come to understanding to that flow diagram again to get it to the next level now. While this was the basic level to see how a process works, how do we further understand the nuances of this? So while we do have an output, we need to see whether the measurement is being done and the feedback is again given to the inputs. Because until unless we have a closed loop, the learnings will never come. So while we do have an output which we have made as per the customer's requirement, how do we ensure that it is meeting what we had actually thought or the customer was actually demanding? So that measurement through those four parameters of quality, cost, delivery, after sales services, those measurements are done and the learnings from that is going out into the inputs again. So this way our cycle is closed and we ensure that we ultimately meet what the customer is desiring. How do we do that? This has to be done through this process of value addition. So while we do have the value addition being done, but this has to be a systematic steps. These steps have to be notified, it has to be documented, it has to be made available to each and every person in the value chain. Because if you don't do it, then the main essence of the delivering the output of the customers, that is about repeatability and consistency. So while we do want the customer to experience the quality, we also want it to be on a regular basis, on a repeatable basis. So until unless we have those steps codified, we have those steps notified, people trained on those steps, we will never be ensured this key aspect of repeatability and consistency. So while we do experience these cases, जहाँ पे हम or rather we experience that people say that yes, this product is good, but we cannot be sure of the quality each and every time. So we talk about in our general discussions as well, we may just not be as officials in a organization, but as an experiencing of those products which are available in the market. We always choose those products where we are sure that yes, the consistency will be maintained. Otherwise, what happens is that one time we take that product, the next time if it does not matches our needs, then we try to instead of using it again, we try to take some other brand. So this is one essential aspect of ensuring quality to the customers and maintaining the customer's loyalty. Until unless we do this, until unless we give the repeatable and consistent outputs to the customers, we will never be able to retain our customer base. So for this, what we need to do is constantly run this cycle. And this is nothing but your PDCA cycle, like Atul sir mentioned. So while we plan our activities, we execute it during the course of our process. Then we check whether the outputs are being met. And if those outputs are not being met, then we act to improve again our entire cycle. So that's how the process works, the process cycle works. So wherever we then move, while we do have the repeatable, consistent efforts being provided, there will naturally be some gaps which will not be, which will lead to the defects, or rather which will lead to the customer's dissatisfaction. So as a learning organization, as an improving organization, what we are supposed to do is all those gaps that are identified from the feedback that is received from the customers, those gaps will result into the process improvements, which we'll cover later on in our session. But these gaps are what we are trying to achieve each and every time. And mind you, the feedback or the expectations of the customers will not remain the same every time, right? Because what we are providing today is something which is maybe attractive to the customer, but once we regularly provide it, it becomes a characteristic which is now the customer's basic hygiene. So that's the challenge, or that's the constant pursuit of quality, as Atul sir also mentioned, that we have to constantly being improve our processes. So we cannot stay fixated that yes, this is what the specification is the customer had implied, and now I'm going to give the same specification across my processes at all points of time. That is not going to work, my friend. So we have to constantly review the outputs or the feedback that is received from the customer. We change the inputs, we change our process parameters, the specifications, the outputs that we desire, and then we try to fulfill this gap. So this is a never-ending cycle which will keep on working and which will help us in improving our processes and delivering the meaningful value to the customers. Now we come on to, while we understand what a process is, why do we actually need a process? So this is very important slide which we need to understand before we actually move on to how part of it, of how do we design the process. So in case we do not have a process, it becomes very difficult to communicate it across the organization. Because while we do speak of it, most of the people will not understand what we actually mean by it, right? Second, the tasks that are have to be executed in a repeatable manner, even those will not be done because people are not aware. Every person will use its own knowledge, its own experience, but it does not translate into the overall repeatability and consistency that we are looking at. The fourth point here is again the communication between the stakeholders. Until unless we have the processes in place, while we talk about the internal customers, how do they know that what is their requirement, what is to be expected from the inputs that they're getting, and what outputs are supposed to be given to their future customers? So that is to be signified through these processes. Then if we have a process in place, it is easier to identify where the bottlenecks are and to improve it. Because if we don't have a codified system, then again, the improvement could be done at one location. But if the process is not standardized, then these problems will occur at other locations. So while we have a learning at a particular place, there could be one instrument that is getting faulty or one part that is getting faulty due to a system design. So until unless that design is changed and the process itself incorporates those designs, the operations team will not be able to improve the overall output. So while they can do improvements at their level, but that will again be a quick fix. It will not be a long-term solution which will give them the results in the longer run. So the processes, until unless they get improved, the outputs will not be ensured. With the process in place, it's better and easier to improve efficiency because we can constantly monitor how our outputs are and what kind of inputs are getting in. And then there's a framework for continuous improvement. So while we do have a documented process, when we do have it in place, it helps us in seeing that what are the areas where we are not doing well. Otherwise, if we do not have such kind of a system in place, it will all be on gut basis. It will not be a fact-based approach. It will be person dependent. And the more it is person dependent, the more difficult it becomes to actually ensure that you get a repeatable and consistent output from your processes. So with that, we move forward. So how do we actually design a process? So for that, these are the, I would say, the guidelines for designing any process. So this is helpful for any kind of organization, and it's something which is sacrosanct across all sectors. So first we need to have the objectives in place as to why do we need that particular process, which is this comes out from the vision of the organization. So while the vision is there, it sets out the objectives. To achieve those objectives, we then have the processes in place because each objective needs to be on a structured manner. It needs to be through a systematic activity. It needs to be achieved while the organization has to achieve its overall goals. So once the process is aligned, then we need to decide who the process owner would be. There has to be one single process owner for each process. Otherwise, There will not be the ownership, and no one will be held accountable for any mismatch or the deficiencies in any process. Once the process owner is defined, we set the boundaries as to where the process is going to operate. That means it should not be that the process is across all the departments, cross-cutting, without the kind of support that is required. We need to see where the input is coming at and what will be the output. Between these boundaries, the process has to be defined, right? Then the customers of that process, those have to be identified, whether they are internal or external. So those departments which are in direct link or direct contact with the customers will look at the external customers, while those which are internal and who are part of the value chain will look at the internal customers. Then we have to see what are the outputs that are expected. So while we have the objectives, we have the process owner, we have the boundaries set, the ultimate effectiveness has to be checked by these outputs. These outputs have to match with the organizational goals. Otherwise, there's no meaning of a process. Until unless we see that these outputs are linked and aligned with these goals, we will never be able to ensure that our vision is met, our mission is met, right? So this process is then with this output, we then move on to how it will be measured. There has to be a system to measure that output. It could be an automated system. It could be a manual system. It could be IT-based system that the processes are constantly tracked. The more it is automated, the more better it is, because the data will be more truthful. It will be more accurate, and that will give you better results. Then we see is the inputs. While the inputs should have been there earlier, this may not be in the right order that way. But the inputs is what we look at once we see that what kind of outputs are required. We see that yes, these inputs and what type of quality are to be maintained to ensure that the outputs are there. Who are the suppliers of those inputs? They could be again internal, external. Then based on this, we define what will be the process steps and the resources that will be required through these 5 M's. These resources then are translated into overall requirements that a group is requiring. It could be regarding the number of people. It could be with the respect to the machines that they have. It could be that kind of method that has to be used, whether it's automated, whether it's manual, what kind of digitization is to be done, what kind of resources elsewhere or materials from other ways that is required. And then finally, we design a control mechanism. This control mechanism is to ensure that ultimately the output that is being met, there are no abnormalities. So that that was covered in the previous session by Mr. Atul as well. So that the ultimate objective is that when we are delivering any output, it has to be repeatable and predictable. So that control mechanism to see whether the output is there within the certain brackets and the specification limits, for that we need to design these control mechanism. So these, my friends, are the key elements for designing any process. And I would strongly advise that whenever we do design a process, these have to be taken care of in appropriate manner. Now, once we have designed this process, how do we manage it and how do we look at further improvements? So we move on to the next section of our session today. So while we do have the objectives and process owners in place, these lay the foundations for any kind of process management. This is our flow chart, which will be constantly looking at the basic of any process, the basic elements of processes. So when we talk about the value addition, which a group does, what it needs is the resources as well as the controls. So while we are doing the value addition, we require resources to provide this and controls to ensure that the output of the customers are maintained. So these two aspects are required as part of the process management. And then while the measurement and feedback is being taken for improvement of the overall cycle and ensuring the repeatability and consistency, the gaps are then monitored regularly, frequent based on a certain frequency. It could be on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, fortnightly basis, monthly basis. And from this gap analysis is where we get inputs for our further improvements, which is what an overall management system looks at. That how do we actually the PDCA part again, rather. So we do plan, we do execute, we check with respect to the outputs are meeting the customer's requirements or not. And then wherever there are gaps, we try to improve our overall processes. For that matter, we might require more resources. We might require to enhance our controls. So this is how the overall process management works, and the responsibility lies with the process owners. The process owners are supposed to look at this process regularly, frequently. It should not be just a mere document that remains in the files. Rather, it should reflect the actual work that is being done. And what happens invariably is these documents are just remaining with the quality team, and the actual work that is going on the site is doing in a different way. So until unless we match both of this, until unless we ensure that the processes are current, the standard operating procedures are being maintained, are being followed, we will not be able to get the improvements done. Because just imagine that while the team is working on the site, while the team has already made the improvements, but those are not reflected at the overall process level. So when the team moves on and the next team comes in, or there are new people joining in, they will never get to know that what is the improvement that the other team did. So to maintain that continuity, to maintain that repeatability and consistency, and the smooth running of the operations, the sustained running of the operations, it is very essential that this kind of system is put in place. Okay. So how do we do it? We analyze, we categorize, and we prioritize the end-to-end processes as overall management system, so that we have limited resources. We have limited resources, and we have to see that with those limited resources, how best we can deliver the output. So while there are processes which are working in tandem, they could be 100, 200, 300 processes which are running, but there would be certain processes which are very critical for the output, while there would be certain which are less critical. I would not say that they are not critical at all, but they are less critical. So between them, the management needs to see, or rather as managers, we need to see that which are the processes which are more important for our value creation, value delivery, and we then focus our efforts on those improvement rather than looking at processes which are not so critical, and we end up spending resources which will not give us that kind of value. So this is again the rule of prioritization, which comes as part of the overall total quality management system. So it's about the 80-20 rule, as you may have heard. So prioritization is the key to any kind of business that we do, and it ends up in giving us more value at lesser resources. Then what we discussed is about the process ownership. So I think we have already touched upon defining inputs and outputs is also what we have shared earlier. Processes have to be measurable and repeatable. This part also we have touched upon. And then building an element of feedback for bringing improvements. All of this will ultimately lead to improvement of the processes and removal of the non-value adding activities, because these are the ones which are eating up of resources, right? When we talk about efficiencies, the non-value adding activities by their name itself signify that they are not giving us any benefit, and we are unnecessarily wasting resources on that. So the lesser these non-value added activities, the more efficient our processes become, the more better our processes become, and more effective they become. So this ultimately leads to the overall improvement of the system. Okay. And then for this, what we need to actually see is that while we do have these gaps in place, how do we improve these gaps? For that, there has to be a system in place for getting the ideas from the people. So that is why we talk about innovation. There's a lot of buzz talking about innovation, but this innovation, it should not be just in blue sky. It should not be isolated. Innovation always has to be directed to something which is going to lead your improvement in your processes. Because if it is something which is isolated to your process, we might there are plethora of technologies available in the market. There are many solutions available in the market. But if that solution is not able to improve your process, that is not going to help you in delivering value. So new ideas should ideally lead to improvement in processes, and that is where the innovation actually gives value to the organization, rather than just following the trends blindly, rather than just looking at what is more attractive as a technology. We should focus on what helps us in improving the processes and removing the non-value added activities. All right. And then ultimately doing all of that, how does it help us in improving our overall processes? So that impact and value addition is what we show as the delivery that is done through the innovation. Now then, by understanding what this process management is, we did speak about the categorization and prioritization of processes. So what kind of processes do we have? So we can have three major categories or broad categories of looking at the processes. So while one business process is seen by what customers are looking at, that means these are the ones which are the core processes which actually lead to the overall delivery of the value to the customers. These are where the customers have stake. Then we have the next set of processes, which are the operational processes, which are essential for the business processes to actually deliver value, right? So these become the key work processes to sort to say that this is the work system definition of how the business process will run. These work systems are defined by the work processes. That, for example, if we say that, yes, we have to have a overall quality management system in place. So while quality is being delivered to the customer, how will that be done? So there have to be operational processes with respect to how the operations team is going to work, how the source team or the procurement team is going to work, how the customer service team is going to work, how the sales and marketing team is going to work. All these processes are key to the value creation, and they support the overall management system that is being framed at the overall company level. And then we have the support processes, which are finance, HR, IT, which help in the smooth running of these business processes and the operational processes. So that is how we understand. So we should not confuse that, yes, process is only for something where the operations are being done. The processes are valid for all kind of activities that are done across the organization, be it leadership, be it strategy, be it safety, be it other aspects such as operationals, manufacturing or logistics or supply chain. And similarly for finance, HR, IT, these processes have to be developed for each and every function that we have. This is just to give you an example and a glimpse of how the overall enterprise process model works after understanding all of this. So while there are suppliers which are partners, and there are human and material resources which are given to the organization, these inputs then have to be handled. So this is an example of a healthcare industry. So healthcare industry, it takes care of various work systems which are related to emergency care, home care, hospice care, inpatient care, long-term care, mental health care, outpatient, primary rehabilitation, urgent care. So these are the various work systems or the business processes which are linked to or rather, these are the operational processes. The business processes are these, which are the governance system, the leadership system, the overall planning system. All these are supported by these kind of work processes. And then these work processes are further supported by the other enabling processes, which are workforce management, revenue cycle management, supply chain, knowledge management, supplier partner management. And these ultimately, when all of these processes run in tandem, they help in achieving the outputs, which are the company's objectives, which are linked nothing but to your vision. These objectives will help you in attaining your vision, and these should ultimately lead to the receiving or the addressing the voice of the customers. So this in whole is the elephant, my friends. So while we spoke about various the ears, the trunk, the legs, the tail, this is how the entire elephant looks like. This is the entire enterprise model, which is about the value creation. It's an example of a healthcare industry. A similar one can be created for your respective organizations, right? So now, after understanding all of this, we move on to how do we actually make the processes improve and what kind of tools that we have. So I'll quickly cover up these aspects. So improvements could be of two types. One could be of problem solving, which is about restoring what the existing state was. We fell back from an existing state because of some problems in the system. So problem solving helps us in attaining that level again. And maturity enhancement or breakthrough. So these are about setting new systems in a whole as a whole, setting up new processes, setting up new standards, and delivering new products, new services to the customers. So this is how the overall, if you see the cycle of improvement, how does it work? So while we talk about PDCA, any PDCA to move forward, it needs to be held by the wedge of the standard. So this is the standard that helps in sustaining that level that we've improved. And every PDCA that we do, which is while the smaller PDCAs, they help us in maintaining the levels that we are at. The new standard or the new jump will require again a new PDCA. And there again, we would require this support of the standard to ensure that this does not fall back. And that is how the overall improvement cycle works. So we'll understand this in more detail now. How do we look at the overall improvement journey? How should we initiate that? So first of all, we need to identify that what is required or expected from the process. Then we see what the actual output is and what is the consistency of this output. So this is what we understood while we looked at the overall control system that we spoke about in the processes. Then based on this, we see at what level of maturity the process is. That means what is the capability or stability of the process, which is again driven through the control charts, the control mechanism. We look at the maturity of the process. We then look at what are the possible areas where the improvements can be done, or which are the areas where the activities are redundant, where it may have been there previously, it may have been required earlier, but now with the change of the systems and with the change of processes, these have turned as non-value adding. Or instead of just looking at it from any activity which is part of the process, we should also see that if it is not there, then what harm will it do to the process. So that is another way of looking at the overall activity. So each activity has to be evaluated in that manner, and based on that we decide whether it is non-value adding or value adding. The value adding ones have to be continued with, and these have to be eliminated from our processes to improve. That is what we talk about. What are the gaps? What needs to be done to improve these gaps? And based on this overall identification of the gaps and the needs, we then move on to the activity of process improvement. So these are the key steps to see towards the gap identification and identifying what is the problem statement. So once we identify those gaps, the problem statement is drafted. And then based on that problem statement, we move on to the overall process improvement, which is what we do it in this manner. So process improvement, as we just spoke, it needs to be seen that what has to be improved. So that problem statement identification is very important, because most of the times what we do is that it's there in our mind, but we are not able to draft it clearly. Until unless we are able to frame that the problem statement aptly and correctly, we will never be able to achieve the process improvement that we are looking at. So first the problem, the pain, then what is the current level and how much do we want to improve? This helps us in defining the problem statement. All of this will require first the data collection, the past trends that have happened, summarization of that data, or how this maturity has been, what is the consistency, what is the repeatability of the process outputs, analysis to see what kind of gaps are coming out, interpreting the data, and then looking at the preventive actions based on the root causes that are identified through data interpretation. So these are the 5 steps which are imperative, or rather the broad key steps for process improvement. We'll understand further on these in the coming slides. So while we do talk about process improvements, how do we actually gain? How do we actually do it? So this again, there is a very the best practice here is to define the quality circles. So every department, every function, every organization, it should essentially have the people looking at those problems. And until unless those people who are working with their hands, who are trying to improve, or rather who are facing these problems regularly, until unless they get together and look at solving those problems, this concept will never take off of process improvement. So what is a quality circle? Let us first understand that. So the concept of quality circle was propounded by Dr. K. Ishikawa, who's one of the renowned quality guru. He propounded this theory in 1962, which was the first time that the journal was published in a Union of Japanese Scientists and Engineers, which was a journal on Gemba to QC. So Gemba is basically the site, as we call it in our terminology. So Gemba is the place of action, and from there getting into the quality circles. How do we do it? So this is where the idea was initiated in 1962, mind you, and that has led to the revolution in the Japanese industries. What is it all about? So QC circle, as Professor Ishikawa propounded, it is about the people who are actually working, who work in the first line of workplace. They continue improve and maintain the quality of products, services, jobs. So his idea was that while the management may think of getting improvements, until unless the people who are working on the shop floor, who are working day in, day out, who are facing the problems, until unless their own thinking capability, their own involvement enhances, the improvement will not come in. So that's why he thought that the quality circle concept has to be introduced, and it has something which has to be, which promotes autonomous administration. Autonomous meaning the people, the teams who are working in the shop floor are working independently. They do not require any kind of push. They constantly look at their problems, they constantly work for their problems, and they look at creative ways of improving those problems or getting solutions to it. That will ultimately lead to the self and mutual development. And that is the idea of the entire quality movement journey. So it is, quality movement journey is not just about problem solving. It's not just about meeting the customer satisfactions alone. It is also about enhancing the own resources that we have. Until unless we appreciate the resources that are there, until unless we talk about their capability development, the overall customer satisfaction will never be met, because these are the key resources, key assets for any organization are its resources, and we need to have their own development for ultimately meeting the organization goals. So how do we go about this PDCA? So understanding it again, the process improvement in the PDCA format, how do we go about it? So while we have identified the problem where it is, we select the theme. We select the theme as to what is the improvement that the team or the quality circle is supposed to do. We select the theme and plan the schedule. We set the targets based on what is the requirement and the status that is there currently. Then once we have done all of that, we move on to the next stage, which is do. So doing requires analyzing the causes. The causes are something which is inherent to the processes, inherent to the system, not the symptoms. So what we invariably do is that we look at the first level only. We don't go deep as to what are the systemic issues or process gaps. Until unless we address those process gaps, the overall symptoms or the feel or the problem that we are facing will never improve. Just to take an example, when we go to any doctor, the doctor will first ask us as to what are he'll ask what is the problem. So when we say that the problem, it is actually what we say is that I'm facing fever, there's a lot of cough, there's congestion, there's poor sleep. So these are nothing but the symptoms. So based on this, the doctor will first try to analyze as to where the pain is. So we look at whether the pain is about the head or the hand or any other part of the body. Once he looks at that, he then prescribes us some certain tests. He's not going to say that, okay, I have understood your problem, now take these medicines and go away. So that kind of doctor will never satisfy the people or the expectations that a patient has. The doctors will ask to first analyze, they will ask to diagnose that what the actual cause is. So that cause will require more analysis, more synthesis. So that analysis will have to be done first. That analysis will have to be seen as to what are the causes in our system. So it's not something that just by looking at a face that one will realize what the problem is. We'll have to deep a bit more. We'll have to dive a bit more deep. So we use various tools for this, which is the cause and effect tool, which will understand later. Based on this cause and effect relationship, we set up a hypothesis. We say that, okay, what we understand based on our analysis is that these could be the probable causes. Now, from those probable causes, we move on to what are the more likely causes or which are the most relevant causes, which are in a way we also call them as root causes. These will then be used for determining the corrective action, and then the implementation of the corrective action will happen. So these are the very critical steps which have to be done. Until unless the causal analysis is done properly and the right causes are identified, we will never be able to eradicate or eliminate the problem from our system. So once we have done with the corrective actions, we need to check whether the actions have resulted in the improvements that we desired or not. If there is still gaps, then what we need to do is we need to again look out at the overall cycle. We need to do it again. If the gaps have been addressed, then we take the appropriate action of standardizing the process. So all gaps that have been addressed, it needs to be translated into process improvements. And then those revised processes have to be then communicated to all employees by the virtue of training. So this is how the systems then again get aligned. Otherwise, what we usually do is we do a improvement project, we just do that improvement there and our job is done. We forget to ensure that the standardization should be culminated. It should be culminated into a process improvement. Until unless the process gets improved, we will never be ensured that the other cycle is not generating same kind of defects. So standardization is one of the most critical aspects again of the overall process improvement. And once we have done with this, we can move on to the other problems. So while the problems are never going to stop, we have to prioritize between what kind of problems that we are going to address by each of this project. So this is the 7-step QC story project, just to understand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this is how the 7-step QC story project methodology works. And this is how the Japanese techniques or Japanese systems work. And that is what we are trying to inculcate in our own systems and processes here in India, trying to meet the overall standards, the world-class standard that we're looking at. Until unless we imbibe these processes and systems for improvement in our own workplaces, we are not going to reach to the level that we are looking for. All right. So we move forward. How do we do this now? So we'll quickly touch upon, the time is limited, so I'll just quickly touch upon the tools for this. So the improvement tools in those 7 steps that we just understood, there are 7 QC tools, which are the standards one, which are the previous original QC tools, so to say. So check sheet helps us in collection of data. Histogram helps us in looking at the data from a frequency based variation. Pareto chart helps us in prioritizing the data, looking at what are the few factors, the vital few, and segregating it from the useful many. Scatter diagram helps us in correlating, in validation the data, validating what kind of effects and causes that we have seen, whether the causes identified have been correct or not. Stratification is again a tool for looking at data from different perspectives, looking at from data from time perspective, from place, from the person, from the kind of activity method. So that is how the stratification helps us in looking at the problem from various angles. Cause and effect is a tool for looking at what are the probable causes that could lead to an effect. So that's also known as a fishbone diagram. Control charts, they help us in the stage of standardization and looking at the overall maintaining of the system's repeatability and predictability. So these are the 7 tools which are used. So while 7QC tools is one of the very famous and very popular methodologies, there are other methodologies as well. So DMAC is what is used in Six Sigma, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, control. But these 5 steps are also similar to what 7 steps that we understood of QC story. It also works on the PDCA philosophy. And then we have design of experiments. So this is an advanced tool. This is used for designing of new products, new services for breakthrough improvements. And similarly, process mapping, process benchmarking is again something that helps us in designing a new system in all. So while the 7QC tools and the DMAC methodology is more towards problem solving, the DOE and process mapping, process benchmarking helps us in designing of new systems in breakthrough improvements. So that's how we can understand these tools. Now, what do these now to further understand these 7QC tools, how do they help? They help us in detecting the problem. So we'll see where the tools are helping where. It helps us in summarizing, in narrowing down on the problems, assessing the factors which are causing the problems, determining whether the assumed defects are true or not. So while we are looking at probable causes and the possible root causes based on our hunch and based on our gut feel, we may not have data at all times. The ultimate root causes have to be validated with the kind of the effects that they are there. Until unless the causal identification is validated with that kind of correlation, our analysis will never be complete. These help us then in preventing errors due to emission, haste, or carelessness, which we might do based on the in expediting the process of improving the overall system. It helps us in confirming the effects of the improvement, and then finally, once we have implemented that process, it helps us in controlling it, by the control charts. We can identify where the outliers are and then do the abnormality management. That's how these tools help us. These are the 7 tools which we have already discussed. I'll just skip in the interest of time. At each step now we'll see which tool is to be used where. So while problem understanding, we can use check sheet for data identification, stratification for looking at various perspectives, histogram to again see what is the frequency distribution of various kind of causes, Pareto chart for identification for prioritization of certain problems out of the entire set of problems that we have. So these tools are helpful in the problem understanding stage. Then when we move on to the diagnosis, which is the do part of it, while this is plan, this is more on do. So the do part of it, we try to identify probable causes through the cause and effect diagram. Control chart helps us in looking at where the variabilities are, where are the possible, whether these causes, how are the trends of these causes, where are the abnormalities being faced. And Pareto chart, then from those causes that have been seen based on the data, we can again prioritize which are the ones which are causing majority of the that are leading to the deviations in our overall outputs. So that is how these tools help. Then the last stages of the solution validation, there again we use the data collection or the check sheet methodology. Control chart to see whether the stabilization has been achieved on the process or not. Pareto chart is to compare whether the initial problems which were seen earlier, which were at the higher level, whether those have been reduced or not. So that is how the before after comparison of Pareto chart is done. And histogram also helps us in comparison whether the validation, whether the after post implementation, whether the improvements have been brought about, whether the process capability has reduced, the variability has improved, and overall the output delivery has improved or not. This is just a summarization of those tools again. So plan, we use these kind of brainstorming, data collection, stratification, Pareto analysis. Do is more of the analysis phase. So we use on cause and effect, scatter diagram, control sheets, control charts, check sheet, run charts. In the check phase, we again use the same tools for validating, yes, whether the improvements have been brought or not. The run charts, control charts, histograms, check sheets, scatter diagrams, and Pareto charts. And then act phase, we are just monitoring and looking at the stabilization aspect. So there we use the control charts and run charts. So these QC tools itself, they need a single session to explain in detail. So it was considering the limited time that we have, we are just touching upon it. In the next or probably the future sessions, we can take up these based on the feedback that we receive. Now, what kind of process improvements can be done? So this we have already discussed once. So just to touch upon, it could be proactive based on what the data is showing. We can ourselves see that yes, the parameters are deviating. They are going into the unfavorable direction. So we initiate those process improvements initially. Learnings from the past, from the feedback that the customer is given. From a aspirational aspect that yes, we want to achieve a benchmark level. So we try to improve the processes from that, from current level to a benchmark that is working at a very high level. Incremental could be based on the regular improvements that we do, and the breakthrough, which is through looking at other aspects of good organizations, best in class organizations, and formation of cross-functional teams to improve the overall working of various processes and integration of there at the system level. So this is how we understand the overall process improvement. So while these are the incremental improvements which help us in maintaining these the gains, or rather the levels, these are the bigger improvements which help us in gaining that in substantial improvement in the output. So these big improvements, these are through problem solving, through innovation. And while these are, while we do see there are variations in this helps, these are also minor improvements. So this, mind you, is very important for sustaining and improving further. So while these good jumps, they show better results, they show better visibility of the teams, but this is equally important. So until unless we sustain the existing system, we will never be able to improve, because all new processes that bring in, they will naturally have some defects, some variabilities which have to be creased out over the period of time. If it is not done, then it is very easy for this process to go down, and again, we would require another project to get it back. So this sustenance is a part which is very important, which is part of your daily management. And until unless we do it regularly through our control charts, through our mapping of processes, through our mapping of key variables in the system, we will not be able to hold our gains and improve the overall system. So now, just to summarize and to understand this better through a video, I'll just see if that works. Just give me a moment, please. I think I'll have to unshare and probably share again.
If it has got a audio, then you have to select the proper setting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm just doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is to understand how customer specification simple 6 stacks of 5 chairs. That has to be developed by a team, and they start off by a simple manufacturing process, which is chair stacking in a manner that they understand. So while each one is working as a chain, there's a lot of non-value adding activity. There's a lot of movement that is happening, which is creating a waste in the overall system. So these are 30 chairs which has to be stacked in 6 columns, 6 rows rather, and 5 each. That's the simple task that they're supposed to do. So the initial process which they worked their way was 120 seconds. So they tried to now make it in a more using a team in a more production line of a kind of a system where each person works in a more integrated manner. So now you see there is a more seamless movement of the chairs, and the overall timing will definitely improve. But in this case, you see, this person is the only one who's working there, and because of which there's a lot of weight that one has to do. And that is ultimately, it will lead to an improvement, but an incremental one, not one which is something going to be a major one. So now that they have done it, so if we see the overall timing, it improves from 120 seconds to just a mere 110 seconds. So that's how it did, but they did improve it. Now, when we try to improve our cycle time and what happens with respect to quality, that's what we're trying to see from this example now. They do it in haste. So if you'll see, now just to speed it up, they're doing it in a way, whichever way that they can, not respecting what the customer is actually looking at. And that's what happens in our shop floor as well. When we try to speed up the time, we are not focusing on the quality or the effectiveness of our actions. It is just that we have to do it as soon as possible. So while this time they have taken a very less time, or rather very significant reduction in time, but the actual requirement of the customer is not being met. It leads to a lot of defects in our line. When the customer views it, he is totally distraught. So he's not happy with the kind of work that is given. He asked for something, and this is what. It was a simple example to showcase what happens in the shop floor. So many times we do relate with it. And then we have a blame game between ourselves that it's the sales team, it's the marketing team, it's the operations team, it's the design team. but ultimately the customer lands in dissatisfied. So as the cycle time speeds up, the quality reduces. So we have to maintain that quality is what we have to always strive for. Now we see if the defect is allowed to propagate in the production line, then what happens? So while this is a systematic way of working where the line is working normally, but as soon as there is an abnormality in the system, each person is looking at it but ignoring it. So defect is visible to everyone, but he said that why it's not my job, why should I look at it? So until unless we own that improvement aspect, that mindset of improvement comes in, and involvement of those shop floor workers is not going to improve. Now see, the system has been disrupted because the chair was not of the same size, and that has led to the drop of the overall output of the system. Now then, the next example, if the defect is correctly identified, then what is to be done? So here again, it's an example where the team is working in tandem. Now the first person, whoever looks at it, he sees that yes, this is not going to work. So it has to be eliminated. Notwithstanding the cost that goes, but until unless we do this at the first stage, it will not result in overall customer satisfaction. So it might be a minor cost, but it has a very great impact on the overall customer satisfaction. So when we now move on to the next stage of looking at how the lean manufacturing or the Toyota system works. So this is an example of how do we reduce the waste in motion, we reduce the waste in waiting, we reduce the overproduction so that the product ahead, it does not, chairs are not passed so fast that there is stacking at the early level. And then over processing is also not there so that the chairs are not too quickly. So now what they have done is at the last stage, which was the bottleneck, they have improved the process to keep two people at the end. You see, now there's no waiting, there's no overproduction or over processing. Everyone is constantly working and there's no wastage of time, wastage of waiting. So this is again an improvement how the problem has been solved, and this aspect has been the bottleneck in the processes have been removed. So that non-value added activity or that person was not giving that kind of value addition. Based on that, the time has been reduced from 110 seconds to 90 seconds. But still, there's a lot of improvement scope required. So this is the breakthrough improvement that we look at now. We see as to how the overall system or the process, the way of working gets improved. So while what they simply now do is form two different chains because the competency, the skill of each person is such that they can manage it at that level. So we have to enhance the utilization of our manpower to ensure that we deliver the best value to the customers. So we do not know what actually is there within us until unless we stretch ourselves, until unless we sweat for quality. So now the team is also happy, the team is satisfied, and the customer also satisfied because the overall timing now we see the overall timing is at a whopping 65 seconds. So you just see that from 120 seconds they have got it down to 65 seconds. So that's the power of these improvements. That's the power of working through a systematic manner, through looking at the process deficiencies and getting the teams themselves, empowering the teams to improve. So this is the last slide that we have. Sorry for overshooting a bit, but this is just to summarize, and this gives you an overall feel of how do we look at the improvements in our system. So while incremental improvements will look at the routine tasks, it will solve problems. The returns are just 1 to 10%. Success ratio is high. It is supposed to be done by the shop floor people who are there, who are working in the regular activities. Then there are certain improvements which are looking at the key processes. It is to remove the bottlenecks, the complexities. So there the returns are higher, but the success rate or the ratio is lower. This is the task of the middle management. For breakthrough improvements, you need to have a new process, new system in place. So there it again looks at the key processes, but there is a new process that has to be created. The returns are much higher. The way of thinking, the way of working has to change, and the success ratio may be lower, but the gains are much higher. So the risk versus the gain ratio is higher there. And this is the task of the upper management. So that's to summarize as to how the overall improvement management system is to be framed. That's it from my end. Thank you for your patient listening, and I hope I was able to deliver some value to the listeners there. Thank you so much. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Kunal. It was indeed very, very interesting, very engaging session, and thanks a lot for taking us through that. We are now coming towards the end of the first part, which is today, and I'll request my colleague, Mr. Maharshi Badeka, to briefly come on the screen just to say hello to the audience. Mr. Maharshi Badeka and myself, we will be conducting the next set of sessions on 1st of April. So we look forward to your participation then. We may not be able to take all the Q&A here today, but definitely all the questions that are not going to be addressed today, we will be taking those on 1st of April next week. We also have our Executive Director of the Indian Society for Quality, Mr. Prabhakar Shettigar, on the screen. So Prabhakar ji, over to you for your comments and your bits of learning to the audience.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think this is not a vote of thanks. I think we'll keep it for the next session, and we also watch out the time. Thanks to the two eminent speakers today and adding great value. I think participants have internalized a lot of things. And you have another 1 week to find out if you have any doubts. You can send the questions in the chat box, or you can send to the email ID that you have received the communication from. So we'll try to put those questions to the speakers and try to get the answers next time. And another important thing that we also said, we'll give the certificates, but it's important that you have been there in all the sessions. That is one thing. Second thing is, I think there is some Google Sheets circulated. You need to answer those certificates, because the learning is always two ways. It is not one way. So let us please go through those questions and try to answer them also. Thank you very much for attending. Looking forward to see you everyone during the next session.
Sure. Thank you, Prabhakar ji. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the tests have been posted on the chat box. So please copy those links on the chat box or attempt these tests. It will be good if you can attempt these tests today itself, or as quickly as possible. Rather, they're very short tests, and please mention your name correctly as you would like it to appear on the certificate. Wish you all the best, and looking forward to seeing you next week on 1st of April. Thanks, Kunal. Thank you, Mr. Atul Srivastava, for today's session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Namaskar. Thank you, everyone.